You are standing in a quiet hardwood forest on the southwest shore of Minnesota's second largest lake, and the ground beneath your boots holds 9,000 years of human story. People made copper tools here when the pyramids were still centuries from being built. Whole villages rose and fell along this water, and the place even carries a name born from a French explorer's terrible handwriting. This is one of the most important archaeological landscapes in the state, and most people drive right past it on their way to go fishing. Welcome to Minnesota Explorer, a podcast dedicated to bringing you a new adventure somewhere in Minnesota with every episode. Each week we'll travel to a different destination, from scenic state parks and beautiful lakes to fascinating cities, historic landmarks, and hidden gems tucked away across this incredible state. If you're gearing up for your own trip, head over to northstartravelers.com, where you'll find gear recommendations to help you travel smarter, plus a full list of our other podcast shows covering destinations around the world. If you love discovering new places and planning your next adventure, follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leaving a positive review helps others find it. Now let's explore Minnesota. Let's start with that name because it tells you something about how this place came to be known. Long before any Europeans set foot here, the Dakota people lived along these shores, and they called themselves the Izates. In 1679, a French explorer named Daniel Greysolon, Sieur de Luce, the same man the city of Duluth is named for, traveled into this country and wrote that name down. His handwriting, by all accounts, was a mess. Later, transcribers looked at his scrawl and read the IZ as a K, and the rest of the word twisted into Kathio. And so Izates became Kathio, a word that, if you go looking, means absolutely nothing in any language. It's a beautiful accident frozen onto the maps forever. But the human history here runs far deeper than that one mistranslation. Archaeologists have identified 19 separate sites within the park, making this one of the richest archaeological collections anywhere in Minnesota. The oldest of them reaches back to the Archaic period, and it shows evidence of people shaping tools out of copper. This in a time so distant it's hard to even picture. For thousands of years, the Dakota made this one of their most important settlements, drawn here by the same things that draw visitors today: the lake, the rivers, the forests heavy with game and fish and wild rice. Then, in the 1700s, the land began to change hands. Many bands of Dakota were moving south and west toward the prairies and river valleys of southern Minnesota, while the Ojibwe were arriving from the east. There's a famous story passed down in Ojibwe oral tradition and recorded by the historian William Warren of a great 3-day battle of Kathio, in which the Ojibwe drove the Dakota from the region for good. It's a dramatic tale, but here's the wrinkle: archaeologists have never found physical evidence of any such battle, and the records suggest the Dakota were already drifting away before the Ojibwe ever arrived. So you stand on ground where history and legend braid together, and where the truth is quieter and more complicated than the story. This whole landscape is now a National Historic Landmark, and as you walk it, you're walking through the homeland of two great nations. The park itself was set aside by the state legislature in the 1950s, specifically to protect all of this: the sites, the mounds, the layered evidence of all those centuries. And in the 1800s, before it was a park, the loggers came through, as they did across so much of Minnesota, and cut the towering white and red pine for the sawmills. What you see today is mostly second-growth forest, a mix of aspen and birch and maple and oak that has reclaimed the hills, and it's grown thick and beautiful enough that you'd never guess what was lost. So let's walk it together. A good place to begin is the interpretive center near the heart of the park. Step inside, and the long story of this place comes into focus. The artifacts pulled from the ground, the explanations of who lived here and when, the connections between the Dakota and the Ojibwe laid out so you can finally make sense of the timeline. Take your time in here before you head out onto the trails. It's the difference between walking through pretty woods and walking through a place you actually understand. If you happen to time your visit with one of the park's naturalist programs or its archaeology events, all the better. Watching someone demonstrate flint knapping, turning a chunk of stone into a blade right in front of you, is the kind of thing that stays with you. When you're ready, let's head out onto the trails because this park has some of the best in the state. There are about 40 miles of them threading through the forest, and the variety is part of the charm. Short, easy loops for an afternoon stroll, and longer routes that carry you deep into the woods and past marshes and quiet lakes. The canopy is dense enough that even on a hot summer day, the trails stay shaded and cool. Move slowly and keep your eyes on the tree line. This is prime habitat for white-tailed deer, and high overhead, you'll often catch bald eagles and osprey riding the air above the water. More than 200 species of birds have been counted here, so if you carry binoculars, this is the place to use them. Now, when you're ready for the signature moment of the whole park, let's make our way to the observation tower. It rises a full 100 feet above the forest, and climbing it takes a little effort and a little nerve. But when you reach the top and turn around, the reward is enormous. The second growth forest rolls out below you in every direction, an unbroken sea of green, or in the fall, a blaze of gold and crimson and rust. And beyond it, wide and silver and seemingly endless, lies Mille Lacs Lake itself. On a clear day, this is one of the finest vantage points anywhere in the region. Save it for a morning with good visibility, and give yourself a few minutes up there to just take it in. When you've climbed back down, let's move toward the water, because this is where the park's deep history feels closest. Mille Lacs Lake is the source of the Rum River, and the river begins its long, slow journey here, more than 140 miles down to the Mississippi. On its way out of the lake, it links a chain of smaller lakes, and two of them, Ojibwe and Shakopee, sit right inside the park's boundaries. This was the lifeline for everyone who ever lived here. You can rent a canoe or a rowboat and push out onto that same historic water, gliding along where Dakota and Ojibwe families once paddled, and it's hard to think of a more direct way to feel the centuries collapse. The fishing on these quieter lakes is good, and the paddling is calm and unhurried, a different world entirely from the big, busy waters of Mille Lacs just beyond. When you're ready to slow down a little, let's wander over to the swimming beach. After a morning on the trails and a climb up the tower, there's something perfect about a sandy stretch of shoreline and cool water. It's a relaxed, family-friendly spot, the kind of place where you can lay out a towel, let the kids splash, and watch the light move across the lake. Bring a picnic. There are tables and fire rings and shelters scattered through the park, and a shelter can be claimed first come, first served, or reserved ahead if you're traveling with a group. As you move through the park, try to hold one thing in your mind. Somewhere beneath these trails and along these shorelines are the habitation sites and the burial mounds that make this ground sacred. The physical record of those 9,000 years. You won't always see them marked, and that's by design. Some things are protected precisely by being left undisturbed. But knowing they're here changes the quality of the quiet. The wind moving through the aspens, the call of a loon out on Ojibwe, the soft give of the forest floor, you start to understand that you're a very recent visitor to a very old place. If you'd like to stay the night, and many people do, the park makes that easy. The main campground sits tucked among mature trees with enough space between sites that you get real privacy, and it works whether you're in a tent, a camper van, or a larger RV. There's a horse campground on the western side for anyone bringing along a trail mount, since the park has miles of horseback riding trails too. And for those who want to earn their solitude, there are backpack and watercraft sites you reach only on foot or by paddle. The kind of quiet, hard-won campsite where the stars at night are genuinely staggering. If tent camping isn't your style, the park also offers camper cabins that take the rough edges off a night in the woods. And don't write this park off when the snow falls. If anything, that's when some visitors love it most. The cross-country skiing here is regularly described as among the best in Minnesota, with miles of groomed trail winding through the white silent forest. There's a sledding hill that families adore, nearly 7 miles of snowshoe trail that lead you to corners of the park you'd never reach otherwise, and a long network of trail open to snowmobiles. The forest in winter is a different creature altogether, hushed, sharp, and beautiful. So what stays with you after a day at Mille Lacs Kathio? It's the view from the top of that 100-foot tower, with the whole forest below and the Great Lake shining beyond. It's the feeling of pushing a canoe out onto the Rum River, where it's run for thousands of years. And more than anything, it's the strange and humbling awareness that you've spent the day walking through one of the oldest, continuously meaningful places in the state. A true National Historic Landmark where the story of Minnesota goes back not decades or centuries, but millennia. Before you pack up, let's talk about what else is worth seeing while you're here. Just up the road, a short drive north of the park, is the Mille Lacs Indian Museum and Trading Post, run by the Minnesota Historical Society in partnership with the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. It picks up exactly where the park's history leaves off, telling the story of the band from their settlement here straight through to their life and culture today. And the restored 1930s trading post next door is full of beautiful handcrafted native art. It keeps seasonal hours, so it's worth checking ahead before you go. Across the lake sits Father Hennepin State Park, with its own classic shoreline if you want to make a two-park weekend of it. And no trip to this corner of the lake is complete without a stop in the little town of Garrison to see the Garrison Walleye, an enormous concrete fish standing proudly along the shore and one of Minnesota's most beloved roadside photo stops. When it's time to eat, you've got a couple of solid options nearby. In Onamia, the 1991 kitchen inside Grand Casino Mille Lacs is a casual spot with an upscale feel. Think prime rib dinners and a relaxed weekend brunch. A nice change of pace after a day in the woods. And over in Garrison, right on the water, Eddy's Resort serves up lake views with its food, a fitting place to end a day spent on and around Mille Lacs. For an overnight, the park's own campsites and camper cabins are the most direct way to stay close to it all. But if you'd rather have a roof and a hot shower waiting, the towns of Garrison and Onamia and the resorts ringing the lake offer plenty of rooms within easy reach. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Before you go, a few quick things. Subscribe so you never miss a destination, leave us a positive review to help others find the show, and share this episode with someone who loves exploring Minnesota. And if you're hungry for more adventures beyond Minnesota, visit northstartravelers.com to explore our other podcast shows and browse gear recommendations for wherever your next journey takes you. Your support means the world and keeps these adventures coming. Thanks for joining us, and happy trails.